Morning everyone, and welcome back to the Alien Technologies workshop. This morning I'm fitting the Nomex honeycomb core into the fuselage here. So where we last left, I had finished the skin infusion. Let me kind of see here. There's the skin, she's all done. And if you remember, I put the tape in the molds for the joggle so you can see how it's conformed right there. And what I'm doing now is fitting the honeycomb core for the sandwich skin. So this core will get sandwiched in between the outer layer of carbon, and then again there'll be an inner layer of carbon connected to the outer layer of carbon. It'll be pared down on the ends and then they'll touch. And in the middle will be this honeycomb core. Now this is, for those of you who may not be familiar with this is 1/4 inch thick, 3/16 inch cell, overexpanded honeycomb. And this stuff is kind of cool because normally I would use foam in my flying surfaces, like for instance my wing and my tail. I'll for sure use foam, but in this case with compound curves, this stuff actually bends quite nicely. So it does have sort of a grain to it. It bends better one way than the other, so that way you can see it bends really nice. This way is a little bit stiffer. It does bend, but not quite as easy. So that allows me, particularly up here where the cowling is, or the cheek cowls sort of start, it's kind of a compound curve here, so you can see it's curving this way, and then it's also dropping off this way. Not so much in the tail cone, but there is some compound curve in the tail cone back there. So basically I'm just taking these big sheets, cutting them to fit, and you can see they don't go all the way to the edge, and that's because once it's bonded in, I'm gonna actually bevel that edge and sand it back slightly all the way around the perimeter to about a 45-degree angle. And then when I put the inner carbon in, it will wrap down that 45 and then actually connect to the outer carbon. So it completely encloses the whole sandwich skin. And I'll do that all the way around. So I've been at this, I don't know, maybe an hour, something like that, off and on over the last few days. This is actually being filmed a few days after I left off from the other video, and that's because I was actually waiting for more honeycomb. I didn't have enough to finish this side, but now I do, so we're good to go. In the meantime, I infused the lower carbon cowl, and that came out really nice. So I pulled the bag off and everything this morning, and I was gonna start pulling it out of the mold, and it's releasing fine, but it's still just a little bit green, so I'm probably gonna wait till tonight, maybe tomorrow, to pop that out. And then once that's out and off the bench, probably even today actually, I'm gonna pull the upper cowling over and start working on that in between. So the goal for today is to get all the core cut, get it glued in, and get the bag on it, and then while it's sitting under vacuum, I can work on the other mold. So just trying to maximize my time. All right, that's it. See you around. All right, this has had time to cool off, and it's actually stiffened up quite a bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop it out. I've gone around most of it already, so most of it is loose. Just a little bit up front there that I haven't unstuck yet, but it's all loosening up really easily. This is my favorite part. I love pulling parts out of the mold. Anybody that's ever done any molding before knows that it's both exciting and a little bit terrifying at the same time, because you know, obviously you hope it doesn't stick and the part comes out good and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I just thought I would share with you, popping this thing out, and we can see what it looks like together. Oh, there it just went, it just released. So let's lift it out here. Wow, look at that. Oh yeah, that is pretty. Let me see if I can set it down over here, and we'll take a look around it. Sorry for the camera work, guys. All right, well, there it is. Wow, I'm ecstatic. That looks awesome. Very cool. You can see, here's the trim line here, so I've got a nice place to mark it off. And I've been thinking about this a lot, but what I'm probably gonna end up doing is remarking the trim lines, both in the fuselage and the cowling. And the reason for that is, I don't know if you remember back way in the beginning, I used a regular laser level to mark the lines, which is fine. It got it, you know, vertical and straight and all that kind of stuff. But I had to mark, you know, one side and then the other side. Couldn't do it at the same time, so I'm not convinced that this line is completely straight. And of course I want the part to mate the fuselage absolutely perfectly, so what I think I'm gonna do is I have access to another laser that I can borrow that rotates and it shines. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way. It shines a light, a laser light all the way around. So, you know, in here you can see where the trim line is. And what I'll do is I'll set the laser up out here and level the fuselage mold, level the laser, so it will project a line all the way around. I'll bolt the other mold half on top of here. And I'll mark this side before I lay it up. And so it'll mark all the way around and I can get it completely square. That's also how I'll square my firewall. And then I'll do the same thing with the cowl molds. I'll trim the bottom here. I think I'll use this as the common reference because I think that bottom is actually relatively straight. So I'm gonna cut this back a little bit so I can see the trim line in the mold. Exhaust tunnel goes right here anyway, so it gets cut out. And then I'll use, you know, I'll set the laser to this line on both the fuselage and the cowling. And then that way I can be assured that not only is it a straight line, but it'll be completely square to the fuselage and the parts will mate nice. I've been kind of agonizing about that a little bit, actually, believe it or not, wondering how I was gonna get it completely straight. So I think that's the solution. And man, I'm ecstatic. You can see the tape joggle here. That came out really nice. A little bit of chipping, but that's to be expected. The edge of the tape isn't sealed, so the resin can actually get, you know, in between the layers of tape. But man, easy fix. That is absolutely beautiful. And again, this is why I put so much time and effort into the molds to make them smooth, and then I primer in the molds, because look at that finish. There's no pinholes to chase, there's no body work to do. I mean, in reality, you could fill this a little bit, obviously, which I'm gonna do, but it's scuff it and paint it. So, man, a lot less work in the long run and a much lighter part to boot. So I'm excited. Got the rest of the core fit in here, so I'm just about to pull that out, and got a couple little spots to sand. If you remember, underneath there was a couple bridge spots, so I gotta pull that out and sand that, make sure we're good to go. And then I've marked this with a silver Sharpie, so I know where it goes right back in. And I'll be gluing this in with a mixture of cabo and resin that's thickened and gets rolled in there, you know, light coat on the mold, or actually not the mold now, it's the inner skin. And then roll another coat, just a light coat on the backside of the core, and then bag it together. So, all right, progress. Okay, it is now the day after. I bagged the core in yesterday. And of course, you know, like always, I didn't really do a good job filming it or really film it at all, but here it is, it's done. Not bad, a little messy in spots. This is where the core slid around as I was putting it in. But anyway, it's locked down tight. The core is absolutely glued down great, which is exactly what I wanted. The cells aren't filled up. You can see all the way through. It's all good, so I'm really happy. Now the next thing I have to do is trim the edge of the core down a little bit so it's uniform all the way around the perimeter. And then I have to bevel that again at a 45-degree angle. So I think that's what I'm gonna do tonight. And I started prepping the upper cowl mold. So that's all waxed and polished and PVA sprayed on. I'm gonna spray the primer tonight, but so it won't be ready to start the layup tonight, but you know, tomorrow, whatever, that's fine. And then real exciting news, that's the lower cowl mocked up to fit inside with the engine mock-up in it. So I was really worried about if that was gonna fit or not, because the drawing that I used was just a CAD model. I didn't have a real engine to measure the cowling, so I went off the CAD model. And thankfully it seems to be accurate enough. And it's gonna get a 8-inch prop extension, which I was also worried about. I thought I was gonna have to use a longer one, but an 8-inch will just fit, which is perfect. So I already have a line on one of those. And really that's about as long of an extension as you wanna go without having, you know, pretty serious run out and vibration issues, so I'm told. So talked to several people about that. They all say the same thing. So I'm really excited about that's gonna work. So yeah, that's where we're at. We're still cracking forward, and you know, all the core it all glued down really well everywhere I wanted it. A little messy in a few spots, but this all gets beveled and sanded back. And I got some, that's probably from my fingers. But overall, you can see right through the core, it's not filled up with resin, which is exactly what I wanted. I didn't want it to be a bunch of excess weight. So I'm thrilled. All right, back at it. Here, I thought I would show you guys an infusion a little bit in real time. So I'm just filling the fill pot here with the resin. And then this blue piece of tape here is pinching off the line, so all I gotta do is remove that. And if you watch, you'll see the resin start to flow. All right, resin is flowing. I'll bring the camera a little closer here. So you can see it's just starting to flow through the fill port here, and it'll slowly start migrating all the way up and down the spiral and then out the mesh. So I've got the mesh set up in kind of an X here. So longitudinally up the cowl and then left and right. So those will be the first places that fill, and then the four sort of quadrants will fill up a little bit more slowly because the mesh isn't doubled over there. So that's about how fast it flows. And I have to keep an eye on the fill pot, make sure I don't let it get too low. Otherwise it pulls air into the laminate, it takes longer to get it out. That's essentially it. This is the reason I like infusion, though. Once you're done, you just set it up and let it go. You have to babysit it a little bit, but that's really about it. No stippling, no sticky fingers, no inhaling a bunch of epoxy fumes, because you just mix with the one pot, and that's it. So you're not right over it. It's great. I love it. Quite a bit more waste, though. You end up using a significant amount of consumables, you know, the infusion mesh, the hoses, the tubes. So you can see how it's starting to travel up the wider mesh channels a little bit, which is exactly what I want, so that's good. And I did something a little bit different this time. I covered the resin, the infusion line and the vacuum lines are covered with a breather. I was finding that, you know, pulling full vacuum, I was actually a couple times popped a couple of bags holes in the stretchy bag from pulling it in between, you know here. So I did this to try to help alleviate that. And so far, it looks like it worked. I've held it under full vacuum for a few hours before I infused it this time. This infusion's actually the next day. I didn't have time yesterday, so I'm up early today doing it before Ryan's baseball game. So this will probably take, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, and then I'll shut off the resin flow the same way. I'll pinch off that line and tape it, and then you just let it sit. All right, I'll be back when there's more to see. Okay, so it's been maybe 10 minutes, and you can see that all the places where I have double mesh, you know, the wings I call it, they're all filled up all the way, and now it's starting to fill in the quadrants. And you know, when I talked about consumables earlier, I didn't mention about resin. Now, it actually does use more resin than a conventional layup. There's good news and there's bad news to that. The good news is the part will have nearly the perfect fiber to resin ratio. So you're not putting extra resin to the part, but you are putting extra resin into the mesh, for instance. It's about a 1/16 of an inch thick. So there's a whole layer of a 1/16 inch thick resin there that gets wasted. So you end up, that's part of your consumables equation. I'm using MGS resin, which is like $350 a gallon. So, that adds up, but in the end, it makes for a better part. And I'm happy with the trade-off. Well, my wallet's not super happy with the trade-off, but, it makes really nice parts. So to me, the benefits are worth the extra time and the extra expense of doing it this way, especially when it comes to big layups. My fuselage, that hand layup, that would have been, nearly impossible, and it would have been heavy, and it certainly wouldn't be the way I want it to be. So anyway, that's my spiel about infusion. So you can see just in the time we've talked that, that's almost closed off. That's getting close. The bottom always takes a little bit longer, and that's it. So I'll show you when it's done. All right, welcome back. So this is done. It stayed under vacuum for about 12 hours. I just pulled the catch pot off, and nice and hard. So not ready to demold yet, obviously. It's gonna sit in there for probably at least another 12 hours. But maybe tomorrow that'll come out. So that looked like it came out nice. I'm happy with that. And in the meantime, I sanded all the core down all the way around the perimeter. So this is all beveled down real nice, and then the lip is also sanded. So that's just about ready. I need to make some templates. I'm gonna make some paper templates to go in here to figure out exactly how big my carbon needs to be. Since I'm cutting it on the bias and stacking up, 3 plies and wetting it out, it'll make it a lot easier if I can mark those, cut them to, just about the right size before I lay them in. And so we'll get that all in there and then vacuum bag that down, and then this side will be done. So we'll get started on that next. All right, it's a couple days later now. I had to work over last weekend, so not a whole lot happened, but I did get all of the templates cut for my patterns for the inside skin. So those are all laid out nice. There's 4 templates here, 3 pretty good size ones, and then 1 little tiny guy for the back here. I can just use some scrap carbon for that, but I got a temporary cutting table set up. That's just a 4x8 sheet of melamine on a table. I'm eventually gonna build, or have to build, a full layup table. When I build the wing in here, I definitely have to build at least, probably at least a 16-foot table so that I can do the skin pieces in as large a piece as possible. I wanna keep the seams down, at least for the full length plies. There'll be a lot of 45 plies in there too, so that won't matter, but at least for the big pieces, the first drag through the upper and lower are usually tip to tip. I've got the canopy is ready to infuse. Not gonna do that today like I planned though. I had ordered some resin and it's not here in time, and my local supplier is out, which was a surprise. So gonna be a couple more days before I get enough resin. I think I have enough resin to do either the canopy or the fuselage, but I don't think I have enough to do both. So I think I'm gonna do the fuselage, get that done, and then I can maybe infuse the canopy one night during the week or something like that. So I'm not terribly worried about it. I demolded the other cowling half, which is right here. I won't pull it out, but you guys saw the other one. It's just like that. It came out really nice. So all good there. So making steady progress. Shop is destroyed again, as you can see, but that's just how it goes. So my goal for today is to get all the dry plies cut and inside plastic. And so what I'm gonna do is wet out the carbon on the table inside the plastic. Then I'll take each template for each particular size, set it over it, cut around the perimeter, pull half of the plastic off, lay it in the mold. Once all the carbon is there in the mold, I'll pull all the inner plastics out, trim the carbon to size. I don't want it to overlap the molds. Then I'll put peel ply on the inside, and then I'll bag that whole thing down. So that's all one thing. I can probably get that done today. Ideally, I'd like to have another pair of hands, but I'll do what I can. I think my son Ryan will be along in a little bit to at least help me get the bag down. So that's where we're at. The goal is to have that fuselage essentially done today, and we'll go from there. All right, catch you later. Okay, peel ply is all down, and I ended up doing that in a few pieces just to kind of make it a little bit easier on myself. So, you know, again, it's just me doing this layout. My son Ryan, he helped out quite a bit putting the carbon in, but since then it's just been me. So peel ply is all down, and the white fabric you see in there, it's like a cotton, it's a breather, and it does two things. One, it'll help to absorb a little bit of excess resin that pushes through the peel ply, but more importantly, it'll allow vacuum to transfer from end to end. So I'm just gonna have one vacuum port down at that end, and this will ensure that vacuum gets pulled across the whole part. So, man, finally done. I'm super tired. This was a big one. Anyway, I'm gonna get the vacuum bag on it, and man, we'll be done. All right, it's under vacuum, and it's pulling down. It's at about 21 inches now, and it's still pulling a little further. So I think we're gonna end it right there. And thanks for watching. Next episode, we're going to do that other fuselage half, and we're also gonna do the canopy. So thanks for tuning in. See you next time.